shit. Oh my goodness gracious. Well, that was fucking sick. You want that one back. Might need to fish one with a stinger on it. What do you think? I knew something was something felt too comfortable. Is my hair good? Good, because I spent a lot of money on this haircut. That is big time humor to kick things off. So I tied a fly that I kind of like yesterday, but haamayatsu B10S. One of the drawbacks, what I didn't end up liking about it, now I know I used my GSP, and then I dropped it on the ground. So I wanted to make something that was not complicated and also not complicated to tie and not complicated to fish. The swim bug, I think for many, the drunk, I continue to be in love with the drunk's simplicity. God, and this is a little ball from Michael's or Hobby Lobby. I think we're working with 3-tone. $1.49. Popping tags. I'm sorry. So per usual, everything, I'm all over the place. So I was just working on the jet boat. Trying to do some waterproofing or something. I don't. This is some good size. We might. Yeah. So it's just a chunk of craft fur. They tie it up around a ball of cotton. But I mean, come on, dude, this is legit. A lot of the craft fur is this isn't going to be your extra select, but this is also, we got some black tips, some brown bases. The brown bases might be just short brown fibers, but we'll see about the tonnage. Yeah, it's just short brown fibers, but that's okay. So I want something I can see. Kind of comparison to the extra select, you have so much longer fibers, but this is, I like this density. And then this specific type of craft fur, it's almost like it's kind of craft furry, it's kind of polar fibery. I should sand my hands because it's part of my skincare regimen, which for everyone who asks me, which is like, I mean, at this point, it's who doesn't ask me how I keep my hands soft? That's really the question. If you're not asking me that, maybe you haven't touched my hands, because I've had people, they'll shake my hand and I'll say, watch it, buddy. I was kind of wanting to do, we're going to do some marabou on the tail as well. And then they're kind of holding, like it's a lingering, it's not like a lingering, the grip isn't firm. It's a lingering, like, it becomes unsafe. It becomes an unsafe space for me. Like they want to use that, they're feeling the skin and they want to use it for something that I'm probably not going to be okay with. It's how it feels to me. And yeah, I'm kind of just ripping on this one. Like I tied this unweighted one. The idea here, I had a trip the other day, kid throwing conventional. He's just a stud, 17 years old. Shouts out Ethan. And his mom, Crystal, she might even be watching this, found me, did her diligence, said, yeah, this seems like the guy that I want to be not just spending the day with, but exposing my kid to. He likes teaching and all this other stuff, and that felt good. That gives him the goosebumps. And the target, it was to catch a. So I'm getting texts. We're driving up this weekend, etc. And like, I don't know. Whenever I have trips like this, my spidey sense is on super high alert for, let's say, your average tailwater trout client. Someone that'll just get on the boat and maybe expect a fish to be in the net already. They were absolutely not that. They said the target is a big brown. She didn't care about fishing. She wanted her son to catch a big brown, and that was it. I was like, okay, 4 or 5 hours on a Sunday morning, low water, semi-fishy conditions, but not really. I believe my quote was, that is a difficult thing to do. And the more we do it, the more we are after a big brown, the less we are catching fish. Period. Um, and the none, we are catching a lot of fish. And so it's not like we're not catching big browns. Like, we're not catching any fish. And we're fishing harder than you would just to catch a bunch of smaller fish. And she was like, yeah, that sounds great. And I don't think she'll mind my saying this. We were on the boat. She was telling me she spoke with someone who shall remain nameless because she didn't divulge. Who was saying they got 50 in the boat. We got 50 in the boat today. She was like, yeah, that's not what we want to do. I think she probably gave him a "we'll call you back." So that part's interesting. When before I know someone who they ended up being fantastic, and I'll probably be fishing them a couple times a year. And he's just a beast, just a killer. I've you see the right arm's getting them more. At 17, just it's so fun watching someone, like, I don't have to say anything. He knows exactly where to put it and what to do. And right as I'm thinking, maybe you should start changing up your retrieve a little bit, dude, like that retrieve, he's going, splash, pause, pop, 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 dude, out of control. So I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, I do. There were a couple I do now. There were a couple instances where we were getting eats in the likely places, and after we landed a stud of a fish that was, again, shout out to this kid. Shout out to Ethan for we're going it's fast water. Like, this is by no means easy fishing. Like, yeah, I'm putting us in the spots, but dude, the spots are okay. Back to tying. I do like to reverse tie when I know that if I don't reverse tie, it's going to be a stubby little mess that won't be clean. So this is less about building bulk and more about just having cleanliness. Yeah, these spots are thread dam. I'm gonna put some super glue on the thread and get this thing tamed. The spots are in ripping water, like mid rapids, and I don't care, man. Fish and spin, fish and fly. I'm willing to bet with the experience that a lot of streamer anglers have. Doing what was done with the spin rod would be far more difficult for them. And I do think a lot of this is achievable with the fly. But man, that the fly rod, the the rod itself, the line, and then your fly, like, everything becomes exceedingly difficult. All of those things work against you. Very few parts of that are your friend. And so I was just thinking, with a lot of the more complicated flies that I like to fish and tie, How about we do something that is not complicated? I already have this one rigged up. It's on a size 1. That's fine. I was going to do a little mini. But a little more hook gap involved in this situation. So it's really for like tight shots, fast water, um, the swim flies, the hair bugs, the changers, the drunken disorderlies. Like, I'm gonna stand by those as not only incredibly fun to fish, but also in water where they have options and where they have time. I think those are getting it done. Most of the time, that means slightly deeper, slightly more uniform. Um, and then they also shine in the shallow stuff because you can let them, you can give them kills and let them hover and do all this stuff that you can't do with the weighted flies while having the same rod, same sinking line that you're switching flies. And anyone who's been on my boat or heard me yap about this before knows that I'm not switching flies primarily outside of a handful of situations. Is yeah, sometimes there are so many good casts in a what I would call a high confidence zone, and at that point, like I've seen it make a difference where you downsize and you get a fish on. The conditions are there, the casting is there, the retrieves are there. Sometimes the bite is not there, even in good conditions. But man, I'm not gonna sit there and say that, oh, this fly is the right one. Like, the fly can present a massive. There's a massive variance in presentation and triggers and what the fish is looking for with the fly before screwing around with everything else. So, I mean, I throw a wide variety of stuff anyhow when we're not getting feedback. Now, if you watch me fishing, that probably won't look like the case because um, if it's bitey, like I don't want to go out and see what a peanut or a little dungeon's gonna do, in this section or that section because I know what the answer is. And sure, there's some days where doing that would scratch an itch for me, but more often, I want to get a large fish, and at this point, for advertising, I don't know if it's some spooky validation requirements in the back of my brain, but I want to get a giant trout blowing up a neutrally or positively buoyant fly near the surface on camera. While rowing or now with the jet boat, while trolling motoring myself. I'm like, that's my mark. But there are still some zones where I think a sort of in the middle, I've gotten in the habit of tying the smaller flies. I'm pretty lip smacky today. The peanut envies is it's my smaller fly go to, and to a certain extent the Kreneik, which is less exciting. I've gotten in the habit of tying those in, or the peanuts in various shades of olive, which is killer, but it's like we already are losing visibility. I'm taking the longs out and just one of the reasons that I do this is to you'll hear Kelly Gallup talk about the connection cover. I kind of, probably to some degree of entitlement or wanting to figure stuff out on my own, gotten away from that and wanted to lean a little more on, building out the front more to cover the back, but putting in a little piece of your body material there stops that gap from, it's not just a, oh dear, it's not just a cover, it is a support system for stuff that's coming from up here so that your taper continues. Yeah, this fly is going to be, I'm already happy with this one. And yeah, I did the one yesterday in yellow. I was actually getting some yellow dye because I just dyed my first dead animal in the new place. It's going to be getting sporty here in the next couple months for a few different reasons, but this one in particular is referring to bucktail. I'm going to avoid putting flash there. I think I'll do a big wing of flash up front. Right, which brings us to something that is not as low profile and something that we can see. And that little trim job I did is nicely doing its job, which is to be short on the wraps closer to the bend of the hook so that the fibers of the chenille don't get wrapped up in the hook bend and create a little rudder. I've said this many moons ago, probably a couple times, but I also like to just clip a little before I put it to the side so that I have a thing to tie in for the next tie, whenever that might be. I'm annoying myself with that. So I think we're going to do wing. Definitely going to put some super glue in. And, just for funsies, this could be a 2-material fly, absolutely. We're going to do some Palmer Marabou because I think it'll look sweet with the tail the way it is. So tip first. Now I'm going to go around my thread in the front so that I can just bring the thread up and through. And we call Bob our uncle. I would say from a fishing perspective, probably doesn't add a whole lot. Because that craft fur, and this is something that I've been big on. I'm not sure. I'm not sure when this started. Now, do we do a small loop? We do. We're going to do another wrap of UV chenille and then a little loop of craft fur. And call it not super simple, but also skip all this front stuff. Just put a wing of craft fur on it, and that's it. You could probably even ignore the marabou in the back. Cinch this down. Give us some flash. But the craft fur has opacity. When that stuff collects together, when you're moving it through the water, it gets small, it compresses in the water, but it is a solid piece of something, as opposed to the marabou sort of fluttering around, which to a certain extent I think marabou does the same thing. The craft fur is just, it feels more like something that blocks light, which is really one of the things I'm after in this specific scenario. So fishing in more off-color water. And if you're wondering, I would say in terms of like relative mental stability, I think where I'm at is enough self-awareness to realize how funny it would be if a stranger were to roll up and look into the car and see me. I really can't just like get into playing with my daughter like meh. Like I gotta go all the way. And she wanted to listen to Katy Perry roar. And, I want to get into it. I want to be ripping it with her. And, first, we listened to it like 5 times in a row. First go around, it was like, oh, whatever. I know the chorus. Then I looked up the lyrics and started singing it with her, and was really starting to rip. I was just thinking how funny it would be if a stranger rolled up and saw the torment in my eyes as I began to genuinely feel like Katy Perry wrote that song for me. With my 6-year-old in the back singing, a quarter of the lyrics and me just hammering 100% of them. Which is to both be aware how funny it is and also to be there genuinely. That's a strange. It's a strange place to be. Or it's a strange something to observe. Man, that was just the perfect amount. So I sit quietly, agree politely. Don't knock it till you tried it, you know? I think we're gonna do a little bit of UV tan. I like tan because the fibers are long and relatively uh strong or flexible. Now we're gonna do one just like that. And what that means is I can brush it and the fibers will sort of extend and sort of blend in with that craft fur. All right. It is pretty fishy out today. Let's go pound some fish to the tune of Let's Go Smoke Some Pot, some song I heard when I was like 9 years old. My friend's older sister. Should explain some things. I said I wanted to tie this for low water. Still had that action. Oh my goodness gracious. Well, that was fucking sick. You want that one back. Might need to fish one with a stinger on it. What do you think? I mean, What do we think? Should we blow one more? I think third time's a charm.